Welcome, dear horror listener. You're tuning into Horror Radio, and I'm truly grateful you're here. Whether you're a long-time listener or just stumbled upon this channel, thank you for joining me for another scary tale. If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and means more than you know. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, what brought you here, or even what kind of story you'd like to hear next. Your support keeps this channel going, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let's get into today's horror story. Melissa was always the early riser between the two of us. Even when we were kids, she'd be up before the sun, wandering the quiet house in her socks while the rest of us were still asleep. She said mornings made her feel like she was getting a head start on the world. I never understood it. I like sleep too much. Back in 2008, she was living in Neenah, Wisconsin, with her fiancé Rob. They shared a small apartment near a laundromat and a shuttered bowling alley. Melissa worked full-time as a patient care assistant while finishing her nursing degree. Rob managed deliveries at a Home Depot just off Ballard Road. They only had one car between them, so their routine had been the same for months. Melissa would drop Rob off around 6:30 a.m., then take the highway north to her shift at the hospital in Menasha. That Friday in early April wasn't supposed to be any different. I still remember the call that came later that night. My mom was the one who answered. I was in the kitchen pouring myself a glass of water when I heard her voice catch. Then silence. Then, "Are you sure?" When she hung up, she turned to me with this hollow, almost apologetic look in her eyes. "Melissa didn't show up to work today," she said, "and no one's heard from her." I don't think I even reacted at first. It didn't make sense. Melissa was one of the most dependable people I knew. She hated being late to anything. I assumed it was some mix-up, maybe a phone issue or a flat tire. But by midnight, the police were involved. Melissa's supervisor had tried to reach her all day. When she couldn't get through, when Melissa's phone went straight to voicemail, she called Rob, who panicked and left work early. He drove their usual route, checked gas stations, side streets, even stopped at urgent care clinics just in case. By the time he called the police, it had already been 10 hours since he'd last seen her. They told us later that the last signal from Melissa's phone pinged off a tower south of Home Depot at 6:34 a.m. That was the last trace of her. Then she vanished. The following days blurred together. I moved back home temporarily, sleeping on the couch just to be closer in case something happened. We printed flyers, called her friends, emailed local news stations. Every time the phone rang, I braced myself for either relief or devastation, but the phone kept ringing without answers. 6 days after she disappeared, a man walking his retriever in a wooded area near County Highway JJ spotted a white Honda Civic parked near a gravel access road. It was Melissa's. The location made no sense. 20 minutes west of where she should have been going. Not on the way to work, not near any errands, just farmland, brush, and silence. The car was locked. The battery still worked. Half a cup of coffee sat cold in the center console. Her purse was on the passenger seat, but her wallet and keys were gone. The police were baffled. No signs of struggle. No blood. No torn clothing or broken glass. Just a sealed vehicle in the middle of nowhere. The man who found the car said he'd walked his dog that way often, but no one ever parked there. He claimed he only noticed it that day because sunlight glinted off the windshield through the trees. Something about that has always bothered me. That road was so isolated. What were the odds? The car was the last solid thing we ever got. After that, it was all speculation. Some people said Melissa might have run off. Too much pressure. Too many responsibilities. Maybe she cracked. That theory always made me furious. Melissa was 2 months from graduation. She just accepted an offer for a full-time position. She had a new apartment lined up near the hospital, and she was planning her cousin's baby shower. She had no reason to run. Rob was rolled out early. He was at work when she disappeared. Surveillance footage showed him clocking in at 6:42, right after Melissa dropped him off. He took a polygraph, answered every question, I remember watching him cry in our parents' kitchen 3 days after the vigil. He said, "She was just right there, and then she was gone." He kept looking for her long after others stopped. For a while, there were other theories, other disappearances. That spring, another woman named Jolene Summers went missing 2 towns over. She was found weeks later in a culvert near County Road K. There were whispers about a pattern. 2 young women gone in the same area, both driving alone, both found in strange places. But police dismissed the idea. Jolene had a complicated domestic situation, a known ex with a record. They said her case didn't line up with Melissa's. They said Melissa's had no leads at all. The most haunting question no one could answer was about direction. Why did she head west? The hospital was north. That back road near Highway JJ wasn't even close to the route. If she made a wrong turn, she would have realized it quickly. Melissa wasn't the type to ignore a GPS or get distracted. And even if she had, what reason would she have to pull over that far off the main road? Sometimes I think about that detail more than anything else. The simple geography of it. The quiet shift in trajectory that turned a routine morning into a mystery. Was she followed? Did she stop for someone? Was she flagged down? Did she see something she wasn't supposed to? I still don't know. None of us do. We kept our case active in every way we could. Candlelight vigils, Facebook pages, articles. I did interviews with local news stations. I wrote to every podcast I could find that focused on missing persons. A couple covered her story, but time moved on and people forgot. Even I began to forget what it felt like to be hopeful. Rob moved to Michigan 3 years later. He got married, had a daughter. I sent a gift when I heard, but we didn't speak much after that. He never stopped carrying guilt, even though he had nothing to feel guilty for. He told me once, if I called her 5 minutes later, asked her to wait for coffee, maybe things would have been different. But that's the thing about these stories. They always hinge on ordinary moments. 5 minutes, one turn, one tiny decision that spirals. A few months ago, I had a dream about Melissa. In it, she was driving, not toward work, not toward the hospital, just driving endlessly, past foggy fields and blurred road signs. She didn't look scared, just distant, like she was watching something none of us could see. When I woke up, I laid there for a long time, trying to hold on to her face. It's been years since I saw it in person, but that dream, it felt real. Sometimes I drive past the area where her car was found. It hasn't changed much. That patch of road still dips gently near the utility clearing. Grass grows tall in the ditch. I always slow down when I pass it. I don't know what I'm hoping to see. Something, I guess. Anything. The man who found her car was questioned again later. They asked if he'd been in the area earlier in the week, if maybe he noticed it before, but didn't come forward right away. He insisted he hadn't. Said he didn't know Melissa, didn't recognize the car. Just a man walking his dog on a cold afternoon. That was all. The police believed him. I didn't. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I pull out the box I keep in my closet. It's full of photos, copies of the case file, old birthday cards Melissa wrote me. She had this habit of drawing little cartoons on the envelopes. Smiling suns, stick figure dogs, terrible hearts with crooked arrows through them. I used to tease her about it. Now I trace them with my finger. She'd be 43 this year. She had a birthmark on her right shoulder and a faint scar on her left ankle from a fall in junior high. Her front tooth was chipped from a softball accident. Her laugh was loud and always caught people off guard. She made amazing grilled cheese sandwiches. She once cried watching a dog food commercial. She existed. She mattered. And she is not forgotten. Back in the summer of 2017, I was working my second job out of high school, a seasonal gig in the outdoor section of a Home Depot just outside Eugene, Oregon. I was 19, figuring things out, mostly coasting, just trying to stay out of trouble long enough to save up for a car that didn't sound like it had asthma. My name's Eli, and to be real with you, I didn't give a damn about customer service. I'd show up, Unload pallets of soil, half-ass the watering schedule, take 2 long breaks behind a greenhouse, and shoot the shit with my coworker Matt whenever we could. He was 18, a few months younger, just as lazy, just as jaded. We'd grown up in neighboring towns and ended up on the same crew by luck or karma, or whatever screws with small-town timelines. Matt was always in a hoodie, always had dirt under his nails, and always had some new hot take about how to work smarter, not harder, usually by doing as little as possible. The garden section was kind of its own world, separate entrance, less supervision, mostly retirees shopping for planters and potting mix. It was easy to disappear out there. The only real oversight we got came from our supervisor, Amanda. She was this wiry woman in her mid-40s with sun-leathered skin and steel nerves. She didn't like nonsense, but she also didn't seem to care what we did as long as the flowers didn't die and the carts didn't pile up. Amanda used to rave about this guy named Derek. Derek this, Derek that. Derek's coming through next week, so I need you two to act like you care. Derek's the reason this section runs so smooth across all his stores. She made it sound like he walked on mulch instead of water. Derek, as it turned out, was the district garden manager, oversaw like 8 stores across Oregon and Northern California. Big deal. I figured he was just some dude in khakis with clipboard. But Amanda, she spoke about him like he was more than a boss. You could hear it in her tone. Not love exactly, just awe. Like she was talking about some celebrity nobody else understood yet. The day Derek showed up, the shift already felt weird. Amanda was manic, sweating through her polo, arranging hose reels like a madwoman. She kept brushing invisible dirt off her pants, kept checking her watch. Me and Matt were hauling mulch bags when a white Tacoma with dealer plates rolled up to the curb, and out stepped Derek. Dude looked like he walked out Carhartt catalog. Mid-30s, maybe early 40s, tan, broad-shouldered, clean-cut, but not soft. He had this perfect tan and a polished confidence that didn't feel rehearsed. When he smiled, it was like you already trusted him. It wasn't just the way he looked. It was how he moved. Calm, casual, in command without barking orders. And trailing behind him was a woman. Pregnant. Probably late second trimester. She didn't speak. Didn't even introduce herself. She stood a few feet behind him the whole time, watching, smiling. Quiet. Eli, right? He said as he stuck out his hand. Heard you've been holding down this corner with Matt. Yeah, that's me, I said, shaking his hand. Matt, he turned. Amanda says you've got a sharp eye for arrangement. You ever think about landscape design? Matt blinked. Not really. I just line up the bags. Derek laughed, clapped him on the back. Hey, everyone starts somewhere. Then he pivoted. This is my wife, Miss Shell. We've got a little one on the way. She just smiled faintly and nodded. Never said a word. What followed was strange. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Derek didn't ask about schedules or sales numbers. Instead, he launched into this weird motivational monologue. Not yelling or anything. Just intense. Personal. You ever think about what your life's pulling you toward? He asked me, totally out of nowhere. Like not just this job, but beyond it. I shrugged. I guess. Trying to save for a car right now. He nodded like I just told him something profound. It starts small. Law of attraction, man. What you believe you deserve, that's what finds you. The trick is most people don't think they're worth anything more than what they've already got. He said it with such conviction, I almost believed him. Like I should drop everything, go back to school, start a podcast, become a motivational speaker. Whatever. He spoke to us for maybe 20 minutes. About mindset, about manifesting greatness, about not selling ourselves short. He quoted The Secret, brought up the energy of a universe. All this big picture talk, and somehow, it didn't come off as corny. It just felt big, bigger than us. After they left, me and Matt sat on a stack of cedar mulch bags dazed. That guy, Matt said, either owns the world or he thinks he does. I nodded. Yeah, Amanda wasn't lying. We didn't talk much about Derek after that. Got busy. Then not long after, Both of us got fired for disappearing too long during lunch breaks. No big surprise there. Then, mid-August, Amanda called me. I'd already deleted her number. Didn't recognize it until I answered. "Eli, you sitting down?" I wasn't, but I leaned against the fridge. "What's up?" "It's Derek," she said. Her voice was trembling, like the air had gone cold around her. "He killed someone." "What?" "His wife." She wasn't even his wife. They were married, and the baby wasn't his. My throat went dry. Amanda kept talking. They found her in the back of a rental property he owned out in Ashland. Strangled. Dead for 2 days before he called it in. Said he snapped. Said she betrayed him. But her voice cracked. "That man shook my hand. That man came to this store and smiled at us." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I was back in that moment, standing in the sunlight while he talked about vision boards and inner purpose like he was Moses on a mulch aisle. I hung up eventually. Didn't ask for more details. Didn't read the article Amanda said she'd forward. I just sat in my room and tried to remember if there was anything that should have felt off. But there wasn't. That's the part that stays with me. He didn't feel wrong. He didn't seem like someone who could do that. I met people who creeped me out. Weird customers. Agitated guys. People who set off alarms the second they got too close. But Derek? He was clean-cut. Well-spoken. He made you feel like you mattered. Like your potential was something real. And yet, behind all that charm, that glow, that charisma, he had a monster coiled just beneath the surface. One that knew how to blend in, how to manipulate, how to put you at ease while hiding something unspeakable. Matt, I never talked about it. I don't even know if he heard the news. We lost touch after getting canned. But every now and then, when I walk past the garden section or see a guy in khakis talking too smoothly, I think about that handshake. That day, the way a man can play the long game, pretend to be golden, and I wonder how many others walk among us with smiles that don't mean safety. The truck was found torched 2 days after Denny went missing. I still remember that phone call like it happened this morning. My cousin Laura, choking on her own panic, telling me they pulled what was left of his work trailer out of a ditch on a back road in Marion County. The fire department had gotten to it too late. Burned clean down to the frame. Nothing salvageable. No sign of Denny. My name's Marcus. I've lived in Salem my whole life, and I can count on one hand the number of people I've ever trusted like Denny Calloway. He wasn't just my uncle. He was one of the few people I'd actually call a good man. That sounded like a low bar, I know, but if you've lived here long enough, you start to realize how rare that kind of quiet, steady decency really is. He ran his own landscaping business. Just him, a second-hand Silverado, and a trailer full of gear he kept immaculate. He was 62, never married, no kids, and he lived in this simple one-story place on the east side, not far from the reservoir. People liked him because he worked hard, remembered your name, and never charged more than he thought was fair. And even when the city started to change, when more folks moved in and crime started showing up or hadn't before, he kept working like he always had. Patient, even-tempered, reliable. The last time I saw him was November 14th. I stopped by to drop off some old yard tools I didn't need anymore. He always found a use for them. We talked for a few minutes in his driveway, the way we usually did. He looked tired, which I remember now because it wasn't like him to show it. But he still smiled and asked about my kids, and told me he just finished up a job over in Jefferson and was headed to Home Depot the next morning to pick up some new timers for an irrigation setup. That's the last anyone I know saw him. The next afternoon, when he didn't return, he calls. Laura drove over to his place and saw his truck was gone. The house was locked, nothing broken, but his phone was still sitting on the kitchen counter. The part still gets me. Denny was old school, yeah, but he never left his phone at home unless he was just walking across the street or going for a jog. And even then, he always told someone. The Home Depot on Lancaster Drive has cameras, but the footage from that morning is frustrating. You can see Denny walking in just before 9:30 a.m., He's wearing that same dark gray flannel he always wore this time of year. Jeans, work boots. He walks past the garden section, grabs a card, and disappears into the plumbing aisle. About 25 minutes later, the cameras show him walking toward the register. He pays for his stuff, 3 small bags. He stops outside the sliding doors and waits. You can see him glance toward the parking lot. Then he walks off camera, and that's it. That's the last trace. His truck and trailer, burned, were found 2 days later, 40 miles south, on a dirt pull-off of County Road 214. It's not a place you'd go unless you knew it. The fire was hot enough to destroy most everything inside, but arson investigators did confirm it was intentional. The ignition system had been tampered with, and traces of accelerant were found near the rear tires. The cops searched the area. They brought in dogs. Nothing. What made things worse was what they found back at Denny's house a few days later. There were signs of a struggle in the living room. Nothing too obvious, no blood, but the coffee table was overturned, the ceramic lamp was shattered in the corner, and a boot scuff on the wall didn't match anything Denny owned. The back door showed signs of forced entry that had been somewhat cleaned up. The working theory, at least what the detective told Laura, was that he'd been taken from his home either before or after the Home Depot visit, or worse, he made a home and someone was already there, waiting. I keep going back over that footage. That moment where he stops outside the exit and waits. Was he meeting someone? Did someone follow him there? Did he get into the wrong car? Then he wasn't naive, but he was trusting. That's the worst part. I can picture him stopping to help someone in the parking lot, maybe loading a bag of mulch or giving a guy directions. He wasn't the kind of person to think twice about offering help to a stranger. The investigators kept things close to the chest, but word got around that the department believed the scene in his house was staged, too clean in some places, too chaotic in others. Whatever happened to him, someone took the time to confuse the narrative. Months passed. No credit card activity, no sightings, no ransom notes, nothing. By the time spring came around, the case was being handled as a homicide. I visit his place every few weeks now. The house is still in probate. Laura and I keep the lawn trimmed. It's strange how the house feels colder now, even when the sun's out, like it knows something it can't say. People around town still talk about him, ask if there's any news. Some folks say maybe he just snapped and walked away. Others whisper about deals gone wrong or secrets no one knew. I don't buy any of that. Not for a second. That man didn't have a dark bone in his body. If anything, he was too good for this place, and someone took advantage of that. What gets me is how quiet it all was. No signs, no noise. Just 1 minute here, the next gone. Every time I pass that Home Depot now, I feel sick. I still park near the garden section, like we used to when I'd help him load soil in the spring. And I always look at the exit. I picture him there, holding those small plastic bags, looking toward someone just off camera, trusting them enough to take a few steps forward, and then vanishing completely. I used to think evil had a certain look to it. Something in the eyes, maybe, a twitch, a slip. But the older I get, the more I realize how wrong that idea is. Evil can look like a tired smile, like someone shaking your hand, like a burned-out pickup truck on the side of a road with nobody inside. You'd think there'd be some kind of closure by now. It's been almost a year. There've been no leads, no charges, not even a suspect publicly named. The town's moved on in that way that towns do. Quietly, politely, like pretending long enough will make it stop being strange. But for us, for the family, it hasn't stopped. It's frozen. Every Thanksgiving since then has felled off. That seat at the table, the one no one wants to talk about. The voicemail I still have saved where he tells me to bring my youngest out to see the new garden beds he'd put in. I replay it sometimes, even though I know it hurts. Just to hear his voice. Just to remember that he was here, that he was real, that the man in that grainy footage really was the same person who sat across from me, who once snuck an extra ice cream sandwich into my lunch when I was 12. They told us to keep hoping that someone might come forward, that evidence might surface, that the earth might finally give him back to us. But hope feels like a cruel word lately. I don't know what I believe anymore. Only that I miss him, that I wish I'd stayed a little longer that morning. Maybe picked up something for him, so he wouldn't have gone to the store at all. Maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe it still would have. I'll never know. All I know is this. Someone out there knows what happened, and they stayed quiet. All this time. We haven't. We won't.